Lecture 4, Emotional Experiences in Everyday Life. Well, this lecture is about emotional experiences to personally meaningful or socially shared situations. A good way to prepare for this lecture is to call up in your own mind a powerful emotional experience that you've had, a negative one, a positive one. What was the situation like? How did you feel? Was it resolved? First point I want to make is that people react to these kinds of emotional situations in an engaged manner. Meaningful situations automatically evoke episodic memories. It's an important point, because what it means is that in any particular emotional situation that you're in now, it resonates with, awakens, recalls episodes from your earlier life. So any emotion now is like the tip of an iceberg. It's resonating with, continuous with your personal life history. Now, it's a bottom-up process, because when you're activating these memories, you're also activating the sensory experiences that went with them. The bodily reactions, the feeling of strain, the sense, the tastes, the feels. Okay? This automaticity is a product of our mammalian past, because the speedy eliciting, for example, of fear can raise the probability of flight and survival. Basic or primary emotions are considered homologous across mammalian species and universal among humans. What does that mean? Well, when we say homologous, we mean there's a parallel structure that links us with our animal past. And this is a very Darwinian position. Emotions, therefore, are like, metaphorically, liberated instincts. In other words, instincts were wired in lower species. When the animal sees a particular cue in the environment, a particular threat, the animal will react immediately to the most minimal cue to run away or attack. Among humans, the nature of the situation is more complex. It's mediated by language. We will react automatically, but I might react and you won't, or you'll react and I won't, because the situation can mean something different to each of us. So we have the automaticity, but the greater flexibility. In this approach to emotion, we have 6 primary or fundamental emotions. They can be viewed in pairs. Happiness and sadness are a pair related to the theme of social attachment. We're happy when we're closer, we're sad at the loss of the person. Fear and anger relate to the theme of assertion, territoriality. They're also a pair. An interesting one that comes at the end, interest and disgust. Interest that draws us in, that absorbs us. And disgust that revolts us, pushes us away. But they're very visceral kinds of responses. We also believe that there's a kind of universality, that these are fundamental emotions linking us with our mammalian past. And they can combine to form blends of emotions in personally or socially meaningful situations. And that's an important point. That when we speak about emotional experiences, they're never purely fear or anger or sadness. They're generally combinations of them. And therefore, we can be challenged to understand how we feel in a situation or to judge how someone else feels, because we don't really completely know how they interpret the situation. Interestingly, when we think of these emotional reactions, they are syncretic. They are blended. Sensations like odors, perceptions, meanings, bodily reactions of a visceral or a facial expressive nature are unified. So that's an important quality of emotional experience. These are whole experiences. These bodily reactions that we have, these bodily memories, shape our experiences. They close the loop, so to speak. They sustain an internally coherent experience. We can focus on details of a situation that awaken us and increase the intensity of our experience. Consider two examples. On the positive Proustian side, a pleasurable odor can bring back the memory of Grandma's kitchen and all the attendant feelings, and the whole thing comes back because the feeling gives it unity. On the negative side, we have the tragic situation of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, where even the smallest unexpected loud clap can, from someone who suffered in battlefield, bring back the complete memories of the tragic unfoldings of the dangers and the losses. These are whole experiences. They're automatic. They're whole. One cue can be sufficient to bring back the experience, and it's a bodily experience. It's not just the mind planning. This is a feed-forward model. The situation is interpreted by the prefrontal cortex, which, quick as a wink, awakens memories stored in the limbic system. The new brain and the old brain interact. This reaction feeds forward to the prefrontal cortex, and the loop is closed. So that's an important point. We see a situation, we're in a situation that's meaningful to us. We have the reaction that reawakens the memories, the meaning of the moment and the resonant past, and those bodily reactions come back and they close that loop and have us focus again on the situation or try to run away. Expressive behavior that accompanies emotional experience can release the pent-up emotion, but can also accelerate the intensity of an emotional reaction, as in the case of a person being hysterical in the situation of an accident, because the emotion begins to accelerate. So you notice this about the situation then. So you were emotional, but now it's getting worse and worse because you're responding to all these cues, and it feeds forward, and the loop is closed, and the loop is made more excessive. That's why it's interesting to consider some differences between people who are expressive and people who are reserved. The inhibited mode of being in the world goes hand in hand with Lecture 3 in the action model. We need to keep our emotions inhibited. All we want is the energy. All we want is that activation and arousal to help us solve the problems. But when the face is involved and it's all spontaneous, then the emotional experience is increased and we can have catharsis, the spilling over of pent-up emotions, the tears that we've held back. Here's an important point. The automaticity of the emotional experience makes it a below-threshold kind of phenomenon. What do I mean? We're aware of the final whole experience. We're not aware that it's shaped by our memories, that it's shaped by our bodily reactions. We're into the moment. We're into the experience. And how our body and our history shapes it is unbeknownst to us. In this case, feelings shape the form of our emotion. There is plasticity in emotional experience. We can have heightening or transformation in the experience of time that can speed up or slow down. Space that opens up or closes in. Causality that is clear and logical or breaks down. Materiality, heightened awareness of sensation and texture. And the feeling of connection or disconnection from others. I feel particularly close to the person here. This is part of the empathic response. I permit myself to be moved by your life situation. Or I'm the detached doctor from the action model, doing the analysis, but not permitting a personal response, not permitting personal memories to get in the way of my judgment. So this model describes a mode of being in the world, German term, Dasein, associated more with the expressive personality, but it can also be self-indulgent and amnestic, where in the memory of my emotions, in the presence of my interaction with you, I become lost in myself and my emotions, and I'm not adjusting and regulating myself to be tuned to other people. One can pay a price with the detached model of adaptation, of not being aware of others, because you're too logical and just planning the situation's resolution, or you can be too absorbed in your own emotions and also not aware of others. Both restraint and expressiveness in the extreme can lead us to pay a price. So we can have strong emotions, doesn't mean that they're true. Okay? Now there's a historical context here as well, just as there was for the adaptation model. In the 19th century, early 19th century in Germany, Romantic philosophers such as Goethe, also the playwright and author, and Schiller, accepted the burdens of uncertainty and tension as part of the search for the unified self. So emotions are things that we accept. They're part of going through life. They're something we have to address, and they are telling us something about our worlds. In the later 19th century, the American pragmatic philosopher and psychologist William James introduced what we call peripheralism. Emotion is the feeling of the bodily changes as they occur. I'm experiencing my bodily changes, and I'm arguing below threshold. It's shaping you, but you're not focusing on it. In the early 20th century, Gestalt psychologists talked about the holistic nature of mind-body relations. And this is a fundamental distinction between lectures 3 and 4. In lecture 4, emotional experiences in everyday life, these are whole experiences. Mind and body are interrelated. In lecture 3, talking about the challenges of adaptation, mind and body were separated, the logical mind and the body that provides energy. And of course, from psychodynamics, we have the whole notion of the meaning of situations. Emotions are like icebergs that reawaken background experiences from early in our lives. And that's one of the things about emotions. We carry them with us in the knapsack and suitcase of life if they remain unresolved. So now as adults, we can have unresolved matters from the childhood that color how we interact with others. We take offense when we shouldn't. Why? Because it's reawakening the memory of the past with the parent where there was that kind of interchange. And we're not aware of it. The role of therapy in that context is to free us from the burdens of our past so that we can deal with the moment in a fresh way. And phenomenology deals with the structure of experience, attunement to the changes and plasticity of time, of space, of causality, of materiality, and connection with others, the very form of the whole emotional experience. In the later 20th century and in the early 21st century, you have scholars talking about natural kinds models, where they're building a bridge between emotion in humans and ethological study of animals, that our emotions have a basis in neural structure and phylogenetic mammalian history. I would refer to them as social kinds. Experiences of emotion like happiness and sadness in context of attachment and loss, fear and anger in the context of assertion and escape, interest and disgust in concept of absorption and the moving away from the world. In summary, emotion is about the linkage between the mind and the body in a unified experience. You can't have emotion without interpretation. You can't have emotion without resonating personal history. And this resonating personal history is not just about the story. It's about the actual response of our body that's been preserved, our awareness, sensation, our syncretic experiences, taste and touch and smell, and meaning all together in unified experience. In other words, it's a holistic approach. Now, finally, this action model from lecture 3 and the reaction model can be seen as opposing, but I want to underscore the fact that they're really complementary. Because we can search for meaning in our adaptive actions. I decided to do this or that, but why and what does it mean? Or conversely, we can try to determine whether our interpretations of events lead to wise strategies of adaptation. I decided to take offense. I know I did. But was it good or bad to say something or to consider revenge? The two themes, action and reaction, in fact, are interrelated. But we have to realize that they can also be dissociated. From an action perspective, we can be so focused on objective outcomes that we fail to consider their implications for other people. From the reaction perspective, we can be so focused on our emotional intentions, not consider whether they'll actually work in situations. In conclusion, we need to have flexibility. We need to have a kind of social plasticity. We need to be able to balance action and reaction ways of dealing with the world in order to have a balanced life. We have a model in psychology for action. We have a model of psychology for reaction. The two together should be seen in harmony, flexibility, and wise choice. Thank you.